Hello, welcome to this Interoperability in Action workshop. Thanks for those who already joined. We'll just give it a couple of minutes until everyone has come into our webinar. I can still see people joining, so we'll just give it another 1 or 2 minutes before we start. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you may be joining. It's a great pleasure to welcome you to today's webinar on interoperability in action, social protection information systems interacting with social registry. We had a record number of subscription for this webinar, so this topic seems to have stirred a lot of interest in the community. Thanks a lot for joining. We are very excited to have you. I'm Veronica Bozak. I'm today's moderator for the session. I'm a social protection policy specialist at the International Labour Organization based in headquarters in Geneva. And as such, I'm also a steering group member of the Digital Convergence Initiative. Can we go to the next slide, please? So as I said, today's topic is discussing the interoperability of social protection information systems and social registries. We'll have some context setting and introductory presentation in the beginning, and then we'll hear from various concrete country examples of how this operates in practice. And then we'll have an open discussion where we will use the questions that you will hopefully post in the Q&A box where you have the opportunity to interact with the speakers and ask concrete questions before we move to the closing remarks. Next slide, please. So as I said, do take the opportunity to ask questions. Please use the Q&A for that. In the chat, you can introduce yourself or make more other conversational comments, but if you have real questions, please use the Q&A. Also, there is a simultaneous interpretation available. You can use the interpretation button in the bottom to choose the language. We have French and Spanish interpretation available. And also just to let you know that this session will be recorded. Recordings will be made available on our website at the end of the session. And by staying online, you agree to this session being recorded and possibly any interventions. Next slide, please. So I hope we are not boring you with this because we've had the same introductory slide for every webinar that we're hosting. This is the 6th workshop, and we already had other webinars where we do this, but just to let you know what the Digital Convergence Initiative is, it's a joint effort by USP 2030 members, so the Universal Social Protection Initiative, aiming to develop digital technical standards for interoperability, to foster an ecosystem for innovation, to avoid vendor lock-in, to reduce time and costs. It is important that we have joint technical standards that facilitate interoperability between various elements of the social protection system, but also between other public administration, government services, and the social protection system schemes and programs. Next slide, please. This series, as I said, it's the 6th in a series of workshops that looks at different interoperability bridges, so to speak, between various elements of the social protection system and the overall public administration. The previous sessions that we had looked at interoperability of social protection systems with civil registration systems, with identification systems, pharma registries, disability registries, and today we have the interoperability with the social registry. So the idea of this session is really to look at the process workflow, the data elements, the automated programming interfaces that are required for interoperability. We are not aiming to discuss the pros and cons of social registries. There is, of course, a bit of a controversial debate around social registries. The objective of this session is just to look at those countries that do decide to run social registries. How can they maximize the benefit of having this treasure trove of data in smoothing the operations of the social protection system and public administration as a whole by building interoperability of the social registry with other elements in the public data infrastructure. Next slide, please. So I already talked about this. These were the previous sessions. They are available on our website. So if you go to spdci.org/past events, you will be able to watch the previous recordings of other interoperability and action sessions. Next slide, please. And just a little bit more about us, the Digital Convergence Initiative. As I said, it's members of the USP 2030 that participate, and it's headed by a steering committee made up of the representative from the International Labour Organization, the World Bank, and the GIZ. Next slide, please. So this is a bit of an overview of the different interoperability scenarios that we are looking at. We've focused on our in our webinar series at the center. I think if you click, yeah, so today's workshop is social registries. Please click again. I thought there were more coming up, but just this is the ecosystem or overall system elements that we're looking at. Next slide, please. And with this, we move to the context setting and global perspective. And I'm happy to introduce the first speaker to you, who's the best specialist we could have had for this. Melis Guven is Global Lead for Social Protection Delivery Systems at the World Bank Social Protection and Jobs Global Practice, and also a colleague in the steering group. Melis, over to you.
Thank you so much, Veronica, for that introduction, and good morning, good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you're connecting from. I'm delighted to be here today presenting in this important workshop. So today's session focuses on a compelling topic in the delivery of social protection, social registries, and their interoperability with program management information systems. Social registries have been in existence for over a decade in some countries, but our understanding of their role in service delivery and their ability to respond to shocks have been evolving and changing. So as mentioned by Veronica, I'll be doing the framing presentation on social registries to try to set the stage for the remaining of the session that will go deeper on interoperability between social registry and program MISs. Let me start with a short context to show where delivery systems fit in the overall social protection systems agenda. So to achieve equity, resilience, and opportunity, the three goals of social protection, we think about social protection systems at three levels. So at the policy level, social protection programs need to work together as a system of complementary integrated initiatives. And for this to happen, it's important that countries have a coherent vision for that social protection system that can then serve to guide them. So at the program level, it's about reducing fragmentation, improving coordination, and harmonizing objectives. And at the delivery level, it's about supporting efficient implementation of programs, meaning delivery systems. And at the end of the day, it's what it boils down to, really. Next slide. Now, let's look at what this looks like in real life. Now, people have many needs, and to address those needs, countries offer a myriad of social protection programs across the life cycle. But programs, unlike in this neat visual perhaps, can be delivered in silos, with each intervention having its own operating requirements, which then leads to fragmentation. Next slide, please. So as a result, with fragmentation across programs, intake and registration can be costly. What does fragmentation look like for people and government agencies? For people, it would mean going to a lot of offices, waiting in long lines, providing the same documents over and over. So it can really be a frustrating process. So for governments, it can mean inefficiencies, wasted resources, and duplication of processes. Next slide, please. It's interesting, though, even with all those differences, we find that most programs go through a similar process along what we call the delivery chain. They all need to do some form of outreach. They all need to register people and assess needs and conditions for potential eligibility for programs. They all need to make decisions on enrollment, on benefit levels and the service package. And then comes the implementation cycle for payments and then case management as well. Next slide, please. So imagine all these things happening all at once and in parallel for each program. That can get complicated. And it's difficult for people to then navigate all those parallel processes. Next slide, please. So what if we reduce that complexity and combine different phases such as outreach, intake and registration, and assessments of needs and conditions through social registries? And social registries exactly do that. They combine these processes across multiple programs. Next slide, please. So then what would this look like for people? It would be so much simpler. They can apply for multiple benefits and services through a common application. For administrators and government agencies, on the other hand, they could pool resources on the front lines through common intake and registration. And in the back end, social registry systems can integrate information for better quality, accuracy, efficiency, and also savings in administrative costs as well. Next slide, please. So a key feature of social registries that I want to highlight here is the degree to which they support dynamic inclusion, that they are dynamic. That means that programs remain open for registration at all times, allowing anyone who needs social protection access it anytime. And typically, dynamic registries are interoperable with other administrative databases to contribute to updating their data, and they're also integrated with program management information systems as well. And dynamic registries play a crucial role in adaptive social protection by enabling governments to respond more efficiently to various shocks, thanks to the up-to-date information that they contain. And in that sense, integration of social registries with social protection MISs, meaning program MISs, play a crucial role as well. Next slide, please. But not all social registries are actually dynamic. In fact, many countries operate social registries with fixed lists of applicants and beneficiaries, which means outdated information. And therefore, inclusion and exclusion errors, because obviously people's welfare status change over time, and static registries cannot reflect that change. However, having said that, static registries is also a common starting point in many countries. And that's okay, because it makes sense in some contexts where the enabling environment is not there to support dynamic registries. What is important, though, is to have that vision and take steps gradually to improve over time to reach a level where the registry is dynamic and up to date. Next slide, please. And linked to that, what I would also like to emphasize here is that countries do not build social protection information systems or social registries in a linear fashion. Some focus more on integration, some prioritize dynamism. And this focus may also change over time as well. And I want to give here the example of Pakistan, which will be showcased during this session as well, which started more with integration and currently moving towards a dynamic system. Next slide, please. So overall, even when you have your systems in place, there is a need to continuously review effectiveness of the registry, impact of programs, program MISs, and adapt to make improvements based on changes and needs. And there are many elements to this, but what I would like to highlight here is a couple of them. The first is the importance of effective communication and outreach to intended populations to ensure inclusion, particularly of vulnerable and marginalized groups. The second is on strengthening mechanisms to provide beneficiaries and other stakeholders a platform to voice their opinion, which is typically done through grievance and redressal mechanisms. And also to highlight perhaps the support continuous learning through monitoring and evaluation, and use those learnings to improve the system and improve programs as well. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, I'd like to leave you with an important aspect of social registries that complements their dynamic nature, which is their coverage. And to demonstrate this, let's take a look at a sample of 50 countries, as you can see in this slide. I should emphasize that this is our work in progress at the World Bank, and we are constantly updating this database because also, things and are changing in the countries. Also, coverage is changing as well, with hopefully improvements in coverage of social registries. But according to what we currently have, the coverage stands at 36%, the average coverage stands at 36% of the population, although there is a wide range that spans from less than 1% to an impressive 92% coverage. So this highlights that while progress has been made, many countries still have room for improvement in both expanding coverage and making their social registries dynamic as well. And really, it's an ongoing journey towards achieving comprehensive dynamic social registries to support adaptive social protection and improve service delivery, and integration of social registries and program MISs also play a critical role in this context as well, as this integration between social registries and social protection MISs, meaning program MISs, enhances the delivery of social protection programs by enabling smooth data exchange and eliminating redundant processes and improving overall program efficiency, emphasizing the value of integration and interoperability between social registries and program MISs. And we will discuss this in detail during the rest of this workshop with country cases and also use cases as well. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Veronica. Thank you so much. Veronica, over to you.
Thank you so much for this, for kicking us off with such a great presentation. I think you've really made very clear and clearly outlined what social registries are, how they can really help to make programs more user-friendly for the beneficiaries, more efficient and effective for the public administration. Really starting us off with this challenge of overcoming fragmentation that we currently see in a lot of countries, and taking us through to the importance of social registries addressing or including an increasing number of schemes and programs, including an increasing number or share of the population. And of course, the very important concept of dynamic social registries and allowing for continuous intake. With this, we now move to our demonstration cases showing interoperability in action, as we say. And this is the team from Access Health International that will demonstrate this for us. I hope you forgive me if I'm not introducing you personally. I think I wouldn't do a good name in pronouncing your names, to be perfectly honest. But it's I'll just hand over to the team and I'll let you also manage the transitions from one speaker to the next. And please introduce yourselves as you present and demonstrate the interoperability case. Thank you.
Thank you, Veronica. So myself, Shifali from Access Health. Moving ahead, we would walk you through the 4 use cases. That is the unconditional cash transfer to the poor households, financial assistance to poor widow, conditional cash transfer for the education, and conditional cash transfers for lactating mothers, showcasing the social registry interoperability with the SP systems. I will now showcase the first use case scenario, unconditional cash transfer to poor households, wherein the government proactively provides the financial assistance to poor households through the interoperability. The social registry is a major system that helps to identify the poor households. The SP-MIS sends the asynchronous request call to the social registry for the list of households based on certain parameters, such as poverty score, location, and the household size. So this ensures that the assistance reaches to the poorest of the poor. In response, the social registry provides a list of households with the household ID, household head's UIN, name, gender, location, poverty score, and the household size in certain time frame. Then the SP-MIS sends the list of UINs to the payment system to verify their bank accounts. The payment system verifies the bank accounts and provides a response with the UIN and the verification status to the SP-MIS. Then the SP-MIS decides and creates a final beneficiary list along with the amount that each household will receive. So once the list is finalized, the SP-MIS sends the disbursement list to the payment system, and the payment system then provides the benefits to the households and sends a disbursement response back to the SP-MIS. This process ensures that the financial assistance is provided to the poor households in a timely and an efficient manner. So the demonstration environment has been set up in the DCI sandbox environment, incorporating the multiple systems that correspond to the social protection programs, social registry, and the payment system. These systems seamlessly interact with each other using the APIs and the data standards, ensuring smooth communication based on the predefined parameters. So in this demonstration, we have integrated social protection program, social registry, and the payment system to showcase the interoperability. So yeah, let's move to the demonstration. While the processing takes place in the backend of this application, we want to demonstrate here the interoperability in action in the backend. The admin logs into the system. The admin sends the asynchronous request call to the social registry to provide a list of households based on certain parameters, such as poverty score between 0 to 40%, location, landford per area, and the household size between 5 to 7. Now the admin clicks search. As it's the asynchronous request, the results would be provided in certain time frame. So as a response, the social registry provides a list of households with the household ID, head of households UIN, name, date of birth, gender, location, poverty score, and the household size. With this information, the SP-MIS makes a decision and sends a list of UINs to the payment system to check if the UINs are linked to the bank account. The payment system sends back a response with the UIN and the is payable verification status. So on the basis of the verification status, the SP-MIS now sends the final list to the payment system. First, let's take a look at some of the beneficiaries' bank account. Currently, Amelia has 620 ALL in her account and Noah Martin has 550 ALL in his account. The payment has been initiated. And the Amelia and Noah have received both the money and a notification on their phone. The system has logged the payment reconciliation in a report and it can be tracked using a unique code and transaction ID. Now, let's examine the logs that provide insights into the background processes mentioned during the eligibility checks. Within the logs, we can observe the timestamp of the API request made a few minutes ago, where the SP-MIS requests the social registry to provide the list of households based on the search criteria, that is the poverty score, location, and the household size. Based on this request, the social registry is providing the response data, that is the household ID, household details, and the poverty score. With that, we conclude the demonstration of the unconditional cash transfer to poor households using interoperability. I now hand it over to Rajdeep, who will showcase the second demo focusing on the financial assistance to poor widow.
Thank you, Shefali. I am Rajdeep. I will now showcase the second use case scenario, financial assistance to poor widow. Olivia, a poor widow whose deceased spouse was household head, is suffering from a financial crisis and she got to know about the financial assistance program for poor widow. Therefore, she applies to it by providing her UIN. SP-MIS sends her UIN to social registry to fetch and verify her details to check the eligibility criteria. The social registry returns her personal details and household details, including her UIN, household ID, name, date of birth, gender, poverty score, relationship with household head, and household head's UIN, name, including his deceased spouse information like his death registration number, date of death, and her child details, which includes the child ID, date of birth, gender, and date of death. Child details are fetched in the case if there is any amount of benefit on basis of number of child and age. With this information in hand, the SP-MIS makes a decision. So this is a scenario where social registry is fully integrated with the CRVS system, and the CRVS system on periodic basis is updating the social registry. However, in some countries, the CRVS system is not integrated with social registry and is a standalone system. In that case, the SP-MIS can send Olivia's UIN to CRVS system to verify her barrister status and fetch her spouse's details and their child details. Finally, the SP-MIS sends Olivia's UIN to payment system to verify her bank account. Upon receiving a positive response, the SP-MIS successfully enrolled Olivia in financial assistance program. The SP-MIS then sends a disbursement list to payment system to transfer Olivia's account. In this demonstration, we have integrated social protection program, social registry, CRVS system, and the payment system to showcase their interoperability. Now, let's take a look in a demo. In this demo, we will showcase the scenario where the social registry is not integrated with CRVS system. Olivia decides to apply for benefits and visits the website dedicated to the financial assistance to poor widow. At the website, she has the option to apply using her UIN. After entering her UIN, Olivia is prompted to provide her consent by reviewing and accepting the terms and conditions section. Once she provides her consent, Olivia proceeds by clicking the apply button. By doing so, the eligibility check process is initiated. The SP-MIS sends a request to social registry utilizing Olivia's UIN to retrieve her household and poverty details. In response, the social registry provides Olivia's personal details, poverty score, as well as the information related to household head and the relationship with household head. Once the relevant records are found, system process to a next stage where the SP-MIS sends a request to CRVS system to verify the current marital status of Olivia using her UIN. In response, the CRVS system provides her and spouse's marital registration detail, UIN, marital status. Upon this verification, the SP-MIS requests CRVS system to get the disease detail by sending the spouse's UIN. The CRVS system in response provides his death registration number, UIN, and date of death. With this information, the SP-MIS further also sends Olivia and her spouse's UIN to CRVS system to get their child details. The CRVS system in return provides the child's ID, name, date of birth, gender, and date of death. Once the above eligibility criteria are met, as the next step, the SP-MIS system makes an API request to payment system using Olivia's UIN to check for any linked bank account and determines if it is payable. Since all the criteria have been met, Olivia is successfully enrolled in the program. The payment would be executed as per the schedule. With that, we conclude the demonstration of financial assistance to poor widow process using interoperability. I now hand over to Apurva, who will showcase the third use case, which involves the conditional cash transfer for education.
Thank you, Rajdeep. The third use case focuses on conditional cash transfers for education, where the government targets and provides benefits. The SP-MIS system initiates a request to the social registry seeking a list of children from households in the school age group, along with their gender and poverty score. The social registry responds with data containing the children's UIN, household ID, name, gender, date of birth, school ID, student ID, educational level, poverty score, and parent UIN. In this case, the Education Management Information System is integrated with Social Registry. EMIS provides annual enrollment details to a social registry, and SP-MIS retrieves the data from social registry directly. However, in scenarios where the integration is not available, SP-MIS sends the unique identification number to EMIS to verify and validate the student's details. Based on this information, SP-MIS determines whether the children meet the eligibility criteria for the program. If the children meet the eligibility criteria, SP-MIS sends their parents' unique identification number to the payment system for verification of their bank accounts. Once the bank accounts are verified, SP-MIS sends enrollment notification to the students. This completes the enrollment process. During monthly or quarterly disbursement, SP-MIS sends the student ID to EMIS for attendance checks, which is one of the conditions. EMIS responds by sending the attendance report to this SP-MIS. SP-MIS then assesses whether the students have met the eligibility criteria for attendance requirement for the program. If they have, the SP-MIS sends the disbursement list to the payment system to transfer payment to the student's bank account. With this, we conclude the third use case, and now I would like to proceed to the fourth use case. The fourth use case also revolves around conditional cash transfers, specifically for lactating mothers. SP-MIS aims to provide benefits to lactating mothers and children under the age of 3 from poor families. To achieve this, the SP-MIS system sends a request to the social registry requesting a list of children per household who are under the age of 3, along with their gender and poverty score. The social registry provides the household ID, birth registration number, date of birth, gender, mother's unique identification number, and poverty score for each child to SP-MIS. In this scenario, the SP-MIS is regularly updated with the information from the CRVS system, followed by the health information system. This ensures that the information received by SP-MIS is accurate and up to date. Once SP-MIS obtains this information, it sends the mother's unique identification number to the payment system to verify the account's eligibility for receiving benefits. The payment system provides a verification response based on which SP-MIS sends an enrollment message to the mother. Before dispersing the benefits, SP-MIS retrieves a report on certain conditionalities, such as postnatal checkups and vaccinations. By sending the mother's unique identification number and child's birth registration number to the health information system. The health information then returns the conditionality report. Based on the information from the health information system, SP-MIS makes a decision and provides the payment to the lactating mother for the child. With this, we conclude the discussion on the use cases. I now hand it over to my colleague Dhananjay for the standards, code directories, and API discussion. Over to you, Dhananjay.
Thank you, Akbar. I will now take you through the details of data standards and API specifications. During the demonstration, you saw how interoperability enables seamless communication between SP system and social registry and facilitating data exchange between them. System interoperability necessitates a comprehensive understanding of a data standard and the code directory by the SP system. As a part of DCI initiative, we are establishing interoperability in terms of data standards, data elements, their corresponding code directories with value sets and API specifications. As you can see here, we have defined data standard for capturing details about households. These standards encompass information such as a household identifier, household head name, gender, relationship type, poverty score, etc. Additionally, we have created a data object for a date of birth, which is type of date and time, and code directory for a marital status, which provides a list of possible value for date field and marital status. In addition to the data standard, we are also developing APIs to demonstrate system interoperability through request and response mechanisms. Some of the APIs we are showcasing includes Get Households by UIN API, Search Household Info API, Get Poverty Score API. The Get Household by UIN APIs allows for checking the household info of an individual based on their UIN. The response from this API includes personal details, household details, poverty score, and relationship type. Another API, Search Household Info, is designed to search for household in a social registry. It accepts parameters such as a poverty score, region, household size to filter the data from registry. The response includes a list of households matching the specified criteria. The third API we have developed is the Get Poverty Score API. It accepts a UI as an input and retrieves the poverty score of a person. We are actively working on developing various APIs that will prove useful in multiple scenarios. It will promote interoperability among the different systems. That concludes our overview of APIs and data standards. Now I will hand it over to Veronica. Over to you, Veronica. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for this brilliant demonstration and explanation. I really liked also the different scenarios that you showed, where if you integrate an increasing number of services or systems, you can automate more processes, but obviously you can also run separate queries if for example, the CRVS or education system or health system are not yet connected. With this, we will move to how this really is working out in practice in a number of countries. And we first move to Pakistan. Can we go to the next slide, please? I would like to welcome our first speaker on the country cases. Naveed Akbar is Director General at the National Socioeconomic Registry, Conditional Cash Transfer of the BISP of the Government of Pakistan. Over to you, Naveed.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to present Pakistan case. So I would quickly start with my first slide to just share with you the country context so that you can analyze how big we are and how we are managing our registry. So we are the country with 249 million population that our recently carried out census 2023 revealed that. And from the social protection point of view, Pakistan ranked amongst the 43 countries most exposed to poverty risks. 54% population is vulnerable to poverty due to health shocks. And we have 36.7% prevalence of stunting amongst children under 5 years of age. And 36% of school-age girls are not attending school, which is 11 percentage points higher than for boys, which is showing gender inequality. 21.9% of the total population living below the poverty line, the cost of basic needs poverty line, which we calculated last time back in 2018, 2019. But if we see the recent poverty line, which was calculated by the World Bank back in 2018, roughly 39.8% of population is living below the poverty line as per low middle income class poverty line. Next, please. So after this country context, let me go through from the journey that we traveled, the evolution of our targeting systems with the digital transformation, and then I will move to the interoperability of our social registry. So we started this journey of registering the people back in 2008, 2009, with this parliamentarian phase targeting, with the issue of non-availability of any poverty data or any registry in the country in 2008, and with the pressure to start the program with the background of high prices, the fuel and food prices, the global crisis that everyone was facing. So we covered around 1.98 million beneficiaries through parliamentarian phase targeting. But soon we realized that this system is, this parliamentarian phase targeting is not giving opportunity to everyone to participate in the program. So we initiated this scorecard survey, this paper-based census survey back in 2010, using 23 variables, proxy mean test approach. And we covered 27 million households of the country. And we were able to provide 4.4 million benefits to 4.4 million eligible beneficiaries between 2010 to 2019 using this approach. Then our registry remained static for almost 9 to 10 years, and we decided to update that registry, and that we did between 2019 to 2022. We updated our questionnaire using 43 variables, and this time around we covered around 35 million households, which was around 200 million population, and Melis was indicating in our slide, representing around 87% of the total population in the country. And we are currently providing benefit to 9 million eligible beneficiaries using this registry. It's a static digital census survey that we carried out between 2019 to 22. But as we all know, the importance of having the dynamic registry, especially in the context of adaptive social protection, we had experience lesson learned from COVID, and we are the country facing shocks, earthquakes, and floods quite often. So we decided to have a dynamic registry in place, and we started working on the dynamic registry, developing the systems from 2023. And as of now, we were able to resurvey of roughly 2.3 million households, and majority are actually from the flood affected districts, because our registry is shock responsive. So this dynamic registry is helping to cover the missed out households, updating the demographic informations. We are doing the cyclic resurveys, recertifications, and also have this feature of shock responsiveness in case of any shock, whether it's economic or any disaster related. So with the help of this registry, not only Benazir Income Support Program, the largest social safety net program of the country, using this registry for implementing their unconditional and conditional cash transfer, but we also use this registry to respond to shocks like COVID, flood, and earthquake, and also some economic shocks, providing the fuel subsidies and wheat seed subsidies and flour subsidies. Other than the federal government, the Benazir Income Support Program, this registry is also being used by the various social protection program in the provincial governments, as well as the development partners. Next, please. So how we reached to this stage, and where we are, and how we made our registry interoperable with the social protection systems. So the starting point is the door-to-door survey, which actually helped us to complete the information of 35 million households. So that is the starting point. And now with the dynamic registry, we are giving the opportunity to the household to visit our dynamic registry centers for their screening. And the screening is basically being done through 617 dynamic registration center across Pakistan. And we are basically registering the people, not only who missed out during our door-to-door survey campaign, but we are also giving the opportunity for the resurvey, the cyclic updates, changing the demographic information like death and birth in a household, marital status update, and all those information is being updated. And we are using different channels to do that. So we have set up the registration desks, which are static. Then we have this mobile app available for registering the households and for updating the demographic information. So we have also recently introduced this mobile van registration mechanisms for covering the remote areas for the purpose of registering the households. And then we also implementing this Union Council-based verification systems by having the camps in far-flung areas to give the opportunity to participate in the survey exercise, those who cannot travel or having the access issues. This system is linked with different databases, the different administrative databases. Like we have this mobile portability database through which we can easily verify the mobile numbers, the contact numbers of each and every household, which actually help us to trace the people and to reach out to them during the shock. So having the authentic mobile number is very important, and that registry is being doing directly through this mobile portability database. Then we are linking our registry with different administrative databases like the revenue, land ownership, and other databases like excise department database for verifying the vehicle ownership, so that we can verify some of the variables of poverty scorecard survey through our administrative databases. So all is happening through our dynamic registry approach. After this, the information that we are getting, we are verifying, we are having a real-time CNIC verification from our civil registry, which is being maintained by National Database Registration Authority. So demographic information is being verified on real-time basis so that we can have proper documentation available to provide the benefits to the people. Then after this verification from NADRA database, we are calculating the real-time proxy mean test, helping people to know their socioeconomic status and making them eligible for the different programs, not only for the BISP, but also for other social protection program. So the real-time PMT calculation is there and is happening soon after the survey that we are carrying out. So all comes to a BISP dynamic NSCR database after all the verification, all those things. And the next step is that we are integrating with the different provincial governments through an API mechanism for targeting subsidies like fuel and wheat and flour and emergency programs, and also helping the provincial governments for implementing their program through this social protection data integration. So it's a secured mechanisms of giving access of the dynamic registry database to our social protection interventions. Then, since we are also implementing our own program, BISP, with the help of this dynamic registry, identifying the population and enrolling them in the program. So through our beneficiary enrollment and management systems, we are validating the social registry household data and making the eligibility decisions and enrollment on the basis of the computerized national identity card. And we are also having some external filters applied before declaring a household eligible. So we have applied some filters, like if someone is a government employee and having a salary above the eligibility criteria, eligibility threshold, so we are excluding them from the program. And also we are verifying the status from our Federal Board of Revenue, maintaining the active taxpayer registry. So if someone's income is higher than our eligibility threshold, we are also excluding them from the program before making them eligible from the program. So these are the few filters that we introduced. So you may see that our registry is not only linked with different databases, the administrative databases, civil registry, but also helping the social protection programs for implementing their programs through a single registry. And we are also able to, through a dynamic registry, able to implement our own programs, whether it's conditional and unconditional cash transfer programs. So that is all from my side. If you have any question, I would love to respond at the end. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Naveed. Can we move to the next country case, please? Which is from Brazil. Next slide, please. So we welcome Liomar, Leite de Morais Lima. Sorry if I didn't pronounce that correctly. He is the Director of Operations of Cadastro Único from the Ministry of Development and Social Assistance, Family and Fight Against Hunger. Welcome, the floor is yours.
Hello everyone, good morning. My name is Liomar, and today I will talk a little about the single registry of braces, we call it Cadastro Único, and about the interoperability with all the databases of the federal government. Next slide, please. Well, what is the Cadastro Único? Cadastro Único is an instrument for identification and socioeconomic characterization of low-income families. This database is used for the selection of beneficiaries for social policy and programs in the federal government, states, and municipalities too. Cadastro Único is a map of the vulnerable population in our country. Our country has today 203 million families in accord of the last census. In the Cadastro Único, we have 42 million families registered. This is represents about 95 million individuals registered in our databases. If we focus in the biggest programs of the federal government, Brazilian, is the Bolsa Família. We have 21 million families, beneficiaries that represents 54 million families. Today we have registered centers in all the municipalities. We have 12,000 registration posts. Next slide, please. I would like a little about the manager of the Cadastro Único. We have the model shared and decentralized management, where the federal government is responsible to define rules about the Cadastro Único, provide the tools for the municipalities, how the Cadastro Único system, and we have the states. State is responsible to organization the trainings for the interviews and the operations in all the country. In the municipal government is responsible to identify the families and register certain information in our cadastro system. Next slide, please. Today we collect information about family composition, address and characteristics of the household, how to access to public service for water, sanitation, electricity, monthly expenses, and we collect information about traditional and specific population groups, how GPTE, how indigenous and the people and the street situation, and all the groups too. We have information about, for each family member, information about civil documentation, education level, disabilities, and work and income. Next slide. This is a summary of the registration process. We have the municipalities responsible to collect and insert information in our databases. And we have today contract with two companies publics. These companies are responsible to maintain, available the cadastro system online for all the municipalities, responsible to integration with all the databases of the federal government. And every month in daily two, we receive the extraction of the database for any process, how to register verification when we cross-reference of cadastro with all the administrative acts of the federal government. We made it to cadastro review because in our country, the family needs to update your information every 2 years. When this family don't attend to update your informations, we proceed with the logical exclusion this registry in our database. And next slide. Now I would like a little about the recently innovation, if integration the Cadastro Único and CNIS. What is CNIS? CNIS, it's a great data lake. We have 8 billion data about birth, death, personal identification. In our country, we have the CPF, is the unique identified individual. And we have information about formal employment, relationships, information about the social security and assistance benefits paid for the INSS, that is a social security national institute. And next slide. We have a process when every change of the income family, it was necessary the family go in the registration post for update your information. When the June now we integrated with Cadastro Único with CNIS, it's no more necessary the family go in the registration post when the change income family change. Automatically we change the information, our Cadastro Único, with the recently information of the databases of the CNIS. It's very important because the federal government get to deliver the qualified information for all the users programs. It's very important and reduce costs too, because the citizen don't have a need to go more in the registration posts, and the registration costs administrative too. The next slide, please. We have today 30 federal programs uses the information of Cadastro Único. We have programs to pay benefits, how also familiar, it's the more know, and all the programs giving discounts on fees, contributions, and access to rights. We have programs social technologies and flexituri. We have programs social service and programs about reduction of the decrease and the fees. The qualify, it's very important because this information feeds all these programs. Okay. Next slide, please. how today the programs access our information at the Cadastro Único. We have 3 ways. The first way is the Conecta.gov. Conecta.gov is an API when the programs can to integrate the system with our system. It's more secret because the information is go to system to system to system. And the second, sometimes we giving access the Cadastro Único system online only read when the programs needs to individual queries. And sometimes we made a extraction for the user programs when these programs needs to make a cross-reference with the other database of the federal governance. The next slide, please. And I would like to leave any tools, our tools publics, when who had interest in more information about our Cadastro Único and program Bolsa Família too. We seen in the collect more informations. I would like thank you for invitation. Sorry, my English, I don't have a good fluence, but I will still stay here for any questions about my presentations in about the integration with the KINIS. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, Liomar. And we are running a bit behind time, so let's quickly move to the next example from Nigeria. Next slide, please. So we have with us Kabir Mohammed Abdullahi, National Coordinator of the National Social Safety Net Coordinating Office, NASCO, in Nigeria. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I will present Nigerian experience with interoperability with social protection programs. Yeah, so the project name is National Social Safety Net project, and the development objective is to provide access to targeted cash transfer to poor and vulnerable households under an expanded national social safety net system. There are 2 PIUs, project implementation units. The first one is the NASCO, which establishes the building blocks for national social safety nets in Nigeria. One of the mandates is also to identify and register vulnerable, poor and vulnerable households, including those experiencing shock. The second PIU is basically focused around providing cash transfer to the people who are identified, and this is called the National Cash Transfer Office. Next slide, please. The poverty score for Nigeria is on what is on the slide. The Nigerian, the poverty line is 40.1%, and 40.1%, which is basically equivalent to about 82 million Nigerians experiencing poverty. The northern part of the country is worse off than the southern part of the country, and the poverty line is $1.90. Next slide. This has been explained much earlier in terms of what the social registry actually does. Next slide. We have registered about 15 million. Nigeria has about 14 million households, and we've registered over 15.7 million households into the registry of poor and vulnerable households. There are 17 million poor and vulnerable households in Nigeria. Out of the 40 million households that are in Nigeria, 15 million are registered, equivalent to about 62 million individuals. We are in 764 out of 774 local government areas, covering the 36 states of the Federation, including the Federal Capital Territory. We are in 8,000 out of the 10,000 wards across the country. Next slide, please. The process for registration basically starts with poverty mapping, and we do what is called pre-sensitization, sensitization, and community engagement. What that does is basically bring people together, divide them into various groups, and men, women, and young people, and then request them to define poverty in the context of their community, and then request them to also identify people based on their definition, identify people that fit that profile. Normally, once they do this, we come together into a plenary, and then the lists from the different groups are harmonized. We also ensure that during that period, individuals that were not, that a minority in that community are also identified. They have their own group, so that we don't have any exclusion issues with that community. And of course, we have once we have the harmonized list, which is in triplicates, we leave one of the lists with the community, and the next one goes to the local government council, and then the third one goes to the state level. And then that list is signed off by the grievance redress volunteers in each of the communities. That list now forms the basis for the enumeration that happens in the household, where we go knock on doors, working with the community grievance redress volunteers to identify those people in the list and then enumerate them. We use computer-assisted personal interview devices to collect the data. There are 5 categories of data that we'll collect. We look at locational data, information. We also look at demographic information, socioeconomic information, assets, and dwelling characteristics. These 5 categories of databases cover about 138 data variables that are captured in the data. The database itself is intervention neutral. It is designed in such a way that all interventions can actually utilize the database subsequently. And once the database goes into our server at the state level, the state will download it and then pass it through all of the auditing and cleaning processes. And then, of course, we do back check. You check for grievance redress in case there are individuals that have complaints to registration problems or complaints about either inclusion or exclusion. You listen to their grievances, and this is addressed within 12 weeks of having received that grievance. And now, of course, we also carry out monitoring and evaluation to ensure that there's fidelity to the processes, and then people are able to access the services. People are able to register appropriately, and it's not a census-based registration. It's basically capturing the poor and vulnerable in each community, and there are parameters on how that is done. Once the state cleans and they share with the national level will carry out further checks and cleaning processes. And then, of course, we also have third-party monitors who are civil society members that are checking to see that the registration processes and everything is done according to the guidelines of the program. And then eventually we have the database coming into the National Social Register. National Social Register itself is an aggregate of all state social registers. And the state social registers are mirrored in the National Social Register. So whatever it is you see in the National Register for every state, it is the same thing that you see in the state. And the harmonized list is also a basis to seeing the heads of household. So the same number, the list that you see in the community is also what you see in the harmonized in the database in terms of the heads of households. And this database is updated every 2 years, and at every point of intervention. Whenever an entity wants to mine the data or intervene, we go back to the field to ensure that the database checks for changes in the household in terms of bad death or movement away from the household or movement away from the location. And this is very vital to keep the data dynamic and also alive. Next slide, please. We have over 20 organizations intervening with this database. You have the National Cash Transfer Office, which is the largest user of one of the largest users of this database, using it to program for human uplifting program, which is basically human capital development program. You also had UNDP, UN Women, and then the government itself also having used this database to intervene during COVID. And you can see the total number of individuals that were reached with that intervention. You also have, educational programs sponsored by private individuals or private organizations and schools. You have the National Health Insurance Authority also mining from this database across the states to provide health insurance for the poor and vulnerable, because there's a basic healthcare provision fund available in the National Health budget, which the National Health Insurance Authority receives 1% of the consolidated fund, and they use that to cover for people in the informal sector. And the largest database available for them to use is the National Social Register for Nigeria. And of course, in various states, the state governments have mandated all their agencies to utilize the database in their states for social development interventions. And you have various levels of interventions happening at the state level, and there are 36 states. And the FCT, but 21 states are actually very active in terms of the utilization of the database. And you also have a private foundation that is utilizing this database. Give Directly, World Food Program, and then the financial institutions. The Central Bank of Nigeria is actually utilizing this database to provide e-Naira accounts to poor and vulnerable households and bringing them into financial inclusion, because the database itself captures the largely the people captured in the database are actually unbanked, unlettered, and undocumented poor and vulnerable households. Next slide, please. For any entity to come into the database or utilize the database, they need to sign an MOU, memorandum of understanding with us, and also a non-disclosure agreement with us. This is very vital because of the national data protection and privacy law that is critical at this stage. And of course, sharing data is vital. It's vital for efficiency of programming, while at the same time, the individuals need to be protected. In terms of the data that is shared, we filter the data using the unique identifiers and ensure that the critical variables of interest are captured, and then we provide the API to exchange the database. More importantly is the fact that the database exchange is very vital, and the infrastructure that is required for that have to be available in terms of capacity, and also the ability of the two databases to speak to each other. So what we do is to ensure that our database basically is able to speak to all databases in the country, all government databases, in terms of the structure of the database. So the database itself is structured in such a manner that every single database in the country is similar to that database in terms of the structure of arrangement of the variables that are in the database. Next slide, please. The National Social, Social Protection Database, which is basically what we have, has unique identifier, which is basically the database identifier, which is also, like I said earlier, the structure of the database in terms of the arrangement of the name, sex, as well as age and other variables, similar to what you have in the banking databases and also in the national identity licensing and other, data requirements, revenue and all of that. And that is very vital because we want to be able to exchange databases with those institutions, and the structure has to be the same. And in this, we also have the National Identity Management Agency working very closely with us to provide ID numbers to the poor and vulnerable household, particularly because this is vital for banking information, banking accounts. But like I said, the primary focus of the database is basically people that are unlettered, undocumented, and also unbanked. For those, most of them are coming without any identification, without any banking information. So at some point, we need to share information with banks and then facilitate the process of the inclusion of these individuals into the banking sector so that they can benefit from the services. So we also are working very closely with another World Bank project, which is called the Identity for Development, which is working to provide, facilitate ID numbers to the poor and vulnerable households and also other Nigerians. And they hold the database in terms of the correct ID numbers, even though some of the members in the database actually have those ID numbers. We don't have a way of verifying that the ID numbers are correct, but we share our database with NIMC, which is Nigerian Identity Management Commission, to verify those numbers and ensure that they are correct, and then share back with us. Once they share back with us, we integrate it into the database. And of course, we do the same thing even with the banking sector, using the Nigerian Interbank Settlement Services to check for the NUBAN number and also the bank verification number. That's the critical identifiers for us in the database is national identity number NIN, the bank verification number, the BVN, as well as the unique number in the database that is provided as we generate the database for each state. And it carries a string, which is basically looking at locational information as well as the names of the individuals, and then the household number of that individual. As well as the community, the location of the location and household number of those individuals, so that we are able to identify the person and, of course, the geo-coordinate of the household. The database is constantly verified, and the unique identities, the identifiers are vital for this exchange, because at the end of the day, what we want to be able to achieve is a seamless exchange between two databases, across agencies and also across systems. And this is what we've been able to achieve with this. With the organizations that are utilizing these databases, we've been able to access and also achieve. So the presentations that the Indian group did actually reflects exactly what is happening with the Nigerian interventions across all of the various interventions. So every intervention that comes in, you verify before we submit the database to that entity that is requesting. What we do is to send the database to the NIBS, which is the Nigerian Interbank Settlement Services, to check for NUBAN identity and the BVN to ensure that the names on the database matches the bank accounts as well as the BVN number. So once they come back with a certification that matches, we hand it over to the payment system, and the payment is able to make the payments seamlessly through an API that is shared that speaks across the two databases. This is all I have for you. Thank you. Over.
Thanks so much, Kabir, and thanks to all the great country presentations. Now, we've heard from countries how they are moving towards greater interoperability of various elements of their social protection systems, in particular relying on social registries. The final presentation that we have before we open up for the discussion is from Core MIS Open IMIS, that developed an open source software to manage social protection programs. And we have two presenters, Andrea Martin, who's the coordinator from Core MIS, and Luis Malike Kende, a principal developer of Core MIS. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Veronica, and hello, everyone. So the Core MIS is a web-based application system that's designed by the World Bank to support cash transfer and economic inclusion programs. The word core alludes to the intention for the tool to serve as a key building block for establishing and enhancing social protection delivery system. The Core MIS is being piloted in several countries, and most notably in Zambia, where it has been officially adopted to manage the country's largest social cash transfer program, JUA. The Core MIS system has been used to rebuild basically the Zambia Integrated Social Protection Information System, which acronym is ZISPIS, which consolidates and helps manage several programs, including the Social Cash Transfer, Emergency Cash Transfer, and the 1,000 Days programs. On the right side of this slide, we see a list of countries that are using or are interested in using the Core MIS, as well as the OpenIMIS, which is a health public good system. Next slide, please. So in 2023, the World Bank, BMSAD and GIZ, as well as STC, announced the merger of the OpenIMIS with the Core MIS. The new merged software will be a digital public good that can manage a variety of schemes, ranging from cash transfer and economic inclusion program to health insurance, employment injury insurance, and voucher schemes. As we can see on the right side of the screen, the system functionality matches and expands the standard SP delivery chain flow. The architecture is fully modular, allowing users to pick and choose the modules that are most relevant for them. They can include targeting, beneficiary registry, household registry, payment, and so on. As part of the merger, the team is also working on expanding the functionality of beneficiary and household modules to include the concept of individuals, basically people who are not yet enrolled in programs, but they might be eligible to do so. This will provide a comprehensive view of the population. There's also a new module, a new functionality, which is called programs, that is being added to map individuals to different programs, including historical data. This is particularly useful for the case of social registry, where we want to have a comprehensive view of applicants and also have a referral mechanism for individuals to different programs. The Core MIS and the new digital public good will allow integration with existing platforms, allowing import of data from multiple sources to achieve a national view of the intervention and the potential caseload. As mentioned, the new software solution can be expanded and customized to cover specific needs. The licensing terms can also be mentioned is the GNU GPL version 3, and will be available as a comprehensive package in October 2023, and new modules will also be added in the following months. I'm handing over to Malika for the interoperability slide.
Next slide, please. Thank you. So the Core MIS is interoperable with other systems to provide an end-to-end need for different use cases. This, what makes this possible is the modular architecture. The modular architecture means that we can pick and choose different modules and combine them to form a different product. Now, each module has an ETL layer and an API layer. The ETL layer allows us to import data from different sources into the Core MIS social registry. So this can be used for historical data that exists in different formats. With the API layer, you can use that to integrate and then exchange data from using third-party tools like Kobo Toolbox, ODK, and then USSD or third-party or custom designed mobile apps. With this exchange of data, you can then register new individuals or potential beneficiaries into the Core MIS registry. Now, once you have the data from multiple sources into the Core MIS registry, the Core MIS social registry provides you a 360 view of all these individuals or beneficiaries, no matter their source. With this beneficiary data merged or individual data merged in the Core MIS social registry, there are other add-on services like the deduplication of individual data. So this allows you to see the individual as one person and then evaluate the benefits to that particular individual rather than seeing them as multiple people. And for countries with very strong ID system, this is something that can be done with the deduplication module. Or we can use the data standards where we have different data or characteristics for beneficiaries to do this. Another add-on for this to be efficient is that we are able to provide an audited means of updating beneficiary or individual data. This is done through a maker checker flow where a request is sent and then validated before approved, before the changes would be merged to the beneficiary records. Another part, or the core part of this social registry, is being able to recommend beneficiaries to different programs. Now, this is based on the characteristics of the beneficiary. So, for example, a beneficiary that is unemployed would be recommended for a cash for work program. So if you have like two beneficiaries where you have one who is employed and then the other not employed, the recommendation engine would favor the unemployed beneficiary for a cash for work program, right? So you need to have different characteristics of these beneficiaries, and then the CORE-MIS social registry would then recommend based on these characteristics. And these beneficiaries would then get benefits from the specific programs they've been recommended to. Now, if you have the beneficiaries getting benefits from different programs, this data needs to be consolidated back to the CORE-MIS social registry. With that, it provides an API for third-party or MISs that have been integrated with the CORE-MIS social registry to send this information back to the social registry. With this information, stakeholders will then see the benefits and then impacts of all the benefits that have gone to these individuals from a single interface. Added to this is the interactive dashboard, where you can interact with the system and then generate different reports based on different data metrics that you'd want to see the impact of the social registry or the social protection programs for these individual beneficiaries. That is it for the CORE-MIS social registry. Thank you.
Excellent, thanks a lot. And with this, we now move to the open discussion. I'm not sure whether we can stop screen sharing for a moment so we can see our panelists and speakers again. Thanks so much for all the interesting questions that you posted in the chat. It's hard to pick and choose, and it's great to see that there's so much interest in the presentations. I would like to also invite participants to vote questions that they find interesting, so that makes my life easier to choose which ones we ask first. There are two questions that have already been voted on, and so I'll just start with those that are ranked highest. There are a lot of questions looking at how to make sure systems and data collection is dynamic. And then a worry of if you have interoperability between different databases, what happens if not all of them are out of date, or if your social registry is dynamic, but your CRVS, education and health MISs aren't, or how dynamic are they, and what happens if the secondary database that you run queries to are out of date and do not contain the latest information. I'll just ask a few questions before I hand over back to the speakers, because we really have a lot of different questions, and so hopefully you can address some of these questions together. The other question is, in the examples, it seems it's often a one-way query from the social protection program asking queries to the social registry. Wouldn't it also be possible to have opportunities for data updating if the social registry can take from the social protection program latest information on beneficiary data, for example? Some social protection, the example that was given in the question was some social protection programs have complaint and appeal mechanisms where maybe the beneficiary is required to input some data that then could be used to update the social registry. I think and maybe one more question on dynamism. If currently the system that is operating is rather static, how can one best move to a more dynamic system, and what are the challenges in moving to making things more dynamic? And with this, I hand back to the speakers. I don't know, these questions weren't necessarily addressed to anyone specifically. So anyone who would like to, I think Naveed, you unmuted your mic already, so maybe you want to go first.
Yeah, so on this issue of outdated the administrative databases, I think it's always a challenging thing to look after all the databases, whether they are dynamic or not, or updated or not. But this interoperability is important from the point of view of strengthening your social registries. And whatever you can validate and verify from the administrative sources, at whatever stage they are in terms of its dynamism, it is important because the real challenge, and we often face this challenge in our country as well, that our data, the administrative databases are not up to date, and we implement something, and after a few months we came to know that we implemented wrong things because the verification that we done was outdated. So, but at least you can, through whatever administrative database is available, first thing is that you have to have some kind of linkages with all the administrative databases. That is an important thing, and that is the first step. And then, I think you can validate more than 80% of your database through these administrative databases. This challenge with outdated database only left with 20% or something like that, and that you can, with time, with further coordination with the different databases, can improve. But obviously you can't be 100% sure, that because you are not responsible and you are not maintaining all the databases, especially the administrative databases, so you can't be sure about 100% sure about the updation of the database. But like the example from Turkey, which is a very good example, and probably that is ideal systems in place where actually one system linked with all the systems, ensuring that the system is being updated on a regular basis. So that could be the way and the ideal way to update your information.
Thanks a lot, Naveed. Did anyone else want to come in on these questions around data updating and dynamism?
Veronica, I may just maybe perhaps add to the excellent response from Naveed. I think, like your social registry, in most cases, your starting point with other databases is also not perfect. And therefore, if there is a decision in a country to then link the social registry to these other administrative databases, and there is hopefully a political will to do that, then with the social registry improvements, these other databases also improve with spillover effects. And that's exactly what happened in Turkey as well. So the starting point was not that those administrative databases were perfect, but they were improved as they also were linked with the social registry for implementing national policies on social protection. I'll stop there.
Thanks a lot. Anyone else who wants to come in at this point? Liomar, did you want to add to this?
Yes. Our main difficulty today is that each database belongs to a specific public institution, and the creation API for all the information is not so simple, because each institution already has its priorities, and fit this into developer sprint. It's a little difficult. And move from the file exchange model, which has a long delay, to a model system-to-system communication model, is something that takes a longer time to deliver quickly, but is the ideal way to go for API model. And I am here to try to get more integration with all the databases of the federal government, our education, and all this.
Thanks a lot. Liomar. Then another set of questions was around exclusion and how to avoid exclusion. So Liomar, there was actually one concrete question asked to you regarding the active outreach and active search activities. If you can share a little bit more information about how this is being done. And then another key question, I think, is how all of this is being funded. How does the government finance running these interoperable information systems? Liomar, do you want to maybe start by sharing information on how Brazil is actively seeking
in our country, each institute is responsible to give information about your databases, and this case that you talked today, the ministry, our ministry, is responsible to pay the public company DataPrev. That is the company responsible to make this integration with CNIS. And on the costs, these projects paid for our ministry.
Thanks a lot. I think this is really an interesting case in Brazil, how they managed to recover part of the costs by charging those who are using the services from DataPrev and access that data so that they can operate on cost recovery basis. I think this is quite unique. I haven't heard this from other countries, but certainly a very interesting example. Did you want to say anything about the active outreach activities and how you try to minimize exclusion errors and make sure those who need to be in the Cadastro Único are included?
With the integration with the CNIS, we have resolved a great problem, because when we don't have integration, it's necessary always the family go in the registration post for update your information, and these cause problems in the selection of beneficiaries of all the programs, the federal governments. And we made the integration with CNIS. We have the better information about common family, and this is very important because we get more focus in the selection of beneficiaries, and because almost the programs use the per capita common family per capita for identify your beneficiaries. When we have the qualified per capita family income, we get to selection the beneficiaries with more quality.
Thanks a lot. And maybe I can ask the others to also come in and share their information on how the system is financed and how you address concerns around exclusion or exclusion errors, or just, I mean, we've seen that the coverage of the social registries still vary significantly across different countries. I see Kabir wants to come in, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I like the way, as a starting point, yes, coverage levels across the programs are actually very low compared to the needs that are available. In our country, in my own country, there are two streams of funding that is available for this program. First one is the World Bank facility that represents the National Social Safety Nets program, which the one we just concluded is the 500 million program, and it also had the benefit of the Abacha Restricted Fund from the Swiss bank. So it brought, that's about 500 plus 332 million that was supporting that program. And we have a second program that is coming on board with that 800 million USD support from the World Bank. The second one is the Economic and Social Recovery Program funds, which the National Nigerian Poverty Reduction with Growth Strategy is under which it's funded. That government fund is available to provide support for poor and vulnerable households. So those are the two streams of funding available in Nigeria. The fiscal space for funding is actually very limited. It's very low. It's not as good as we expect. The funding is constrained. Because of that, again, we can't operate at scale, and that's when I mean at scale, I mean for all interventions, But there's also a social investment program that is funded by the government, which basically looks at Human Development Index, basically around providing employment opportunities, skills acquisition. Under the social investment program, it's called Empower, and then you have the government enterprise and empowerment program, which is called the GIP, which is basically funding for small and medium enterprises. And then you have the homegrown school feeding program that also supports human capital development around education for people underprivileged. Especially for primary 1 to 3. Those are all programs that are funded by government. So basically, it's with two streams of funding. Government even have allocated and prioritized funding for poverty reduction, as well as you also have the World Bank facility, which is actually showcasing what is feasible and what is possible, particularly using the social registries. In terms of exclusion and how to avoid exclusion, I would say for us, we have established grievance redress mechanism from the community level right up to even this provincial or state level and then national level. So anything that is not able, they are not able to investigate and resolve an issue, they escalate it to the higher level. And at that higher level, everything has to be concluded within 12 weeks. Whatever issue is raised has to be concluded within 12 weeks. And we also have a grievance redress call center, which people can actually call in to complain about registration complaints or payment complaints. So those provide opportunities to address grievances. And then also there's a guideline that is developed within the program to address grievances across all of the parameters of the intervention. That's my contribution. Over. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kabir. Did anyone else want to come in and share experience around how they finance the cost of running the system, or how to make sure data is up to date and is regularly updated in the system, or how to cover additional households or individuals that are not yet covered?
I just want to add one thing. Yeah,
sure.
So, I think we should not worry about cost of updating the data, because cost of not updating the data is more than the cost of updating the data, because then you will be dealing with targeting inefficiencies and exclusion and inclusion errors. So as much as you can invest in updating the databases, I think that should be the way, and the cost should not be a worry, and you have to invest for having a good targeting efficient system. The only way that you can avoid the cost, that could be the duplication of efforts and resources by making this registry available for every social protection program, so that there should not be multiple socioeconomic registries being managed all across the country. That is the only way through you can actually make it cost benefit in that way.
Thanks a lot.
May I also come in?
Yes, Melis, please.
Yes, sorry. So I think the cost recovery probably will happen with the efficiency gains. That's the first thing. But the other thing I would like to emphasize is also to perhaps even to start with, to go for open source solutions that would be a low cost, hopefully, start, because countries don't have to reinvent the wheel. They will start with technology that's already there, with some customizations. And with open source solutions, you would have developers and integrators hopefully in the market. Then, if you want to go, if you want external support, that would also hopefully cost less. But certainly, I think the capacity, internal capacity, is something that I believe needs to be prioritized moving forward, to make sure that the system can be also updated and upgraded as needed as well.
Veronica, you're muted.
Thank you. Sorry. With this, our time for discussion is already up. I don't know if there are any urgent things that speakers still wanted to share or were eager to highlight. Any final thoughts? If not, Kumal, can I ask you to share your screen again for the closing remarks?
Sure, just 1 minute.
And in the meantime, my apologies that we weren't able to address each and every one of the questions that was posted in the Q&A. Do check whether even as this webinar continues, we are also answering questions in writing. Next slide, please. So I will hand over to Cecilia Chavez now, the Regional Coordinator for Latin America on social protection, innovation and learning from the GIZ. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Veronica. And I will provide the closing remarks. This sixth workshop in the series of interoperability in action discussed some use cases of interoperability between social registry and social protection MIS systems, and demonstrate integration with social protection MIS. The demonstration highlighted the value of interoperability with delivering social protection programs. Thank you very much to all the speakers for all your fantastic inputs. And also a big thanks to the audience who posted many questions in the chat box, in the Q&A box. In one moment, we had over to 141 people connected, so we had such a good attendance, as well as many questions as I already said. Thank you, thanks to Veronica from ILO for the great moderation too. Melis did a very great job getting us to the global context with some of the important key facts. One of the key messages from my perspective was avoiding fragmentation, and this is a very key topic regarding this integration and the use of dynamic social registration. Of course, there are many countries to have room for improvement in terms of integration social registries with social protection MIS by a smooth data exchange, improvement, efficiency. And also Melis mentioned some key challenges and difficulties, but the way forward is promising. And then we also saw these very brilliant demonstrations, explanations with different scenarios. We had the first scenario, the unconditional cash transfer to poor households using interoperability. It combined the social protection MIS with social registries and payment system, the financial assistance to poor widow that also combines the social protection MIS with social registries, but also included the CRBS systems and payment systems. And yeah, I just wanted to highlight that this was very comprehensive and interesting explanation on the processes and the different kind of models and solutions we can use or have in mind once implementing this kind of integration of social protection with MIS solutions with social registries. Then we heard from 3 very interesting countries examples, starting from Pakistan, that show us the evolution of targeting with digital transformation, how they used at the beginning scorecard surveys, and how this was allowing to improve the coverage of population in Pakistan. They highlighted the importance of this dynamic registry and how, again, is allowing them to find out some houses at the beginning were missing in the system, and also now they can visit, they even have 617 dynamic registration centers where people can approach to and provide the information, which is very interesting, and how they are using in the system mobile apps for updating information, and how the system is linked with different admin data in the country. Then we had the Brazilian case. Liomar, Leite, de Morais, Lima presented us the example, and it was very interesting to learn how big is the social registry in Brazil. Cadastro Único interoperates with lots of admin federal databases, and this allows them the integration also with the civil registry, with information of tax payments, the deaths and births, dates, the social security, and there are like 30 federal programs using Cadastro Único to offer benefits and services to the population. And yeah, that was quite amazed and interesting. And finally, we had Nigeria, and they presented the National Social Safety Net Program and how this program interoperates with the registry, and how the registration takes place in vulnerable and poor communities. And at the national level, is implemented the check and data quality control. I really want to highlight this in the Nigerian case. They quite emphasize the control of data, which is quite important, and how they verify the ID. There's an institution which verifies the ID numbers are correct, and there's a constant effort to verify the data and control the data quality in the system. I really like that. And maybe finally, I would like to also share with you some thoughts, which is that maybe there's no an ideal model. What matters is the system chosen response to a country needs, and that which is important is that is appropriate to the context, to the country context, and affordable and sustainable. And also, it is evident that integration is mainly a policy issue requiring political and institutional arrangements rather than technical fixes, meaning that the effective system for data and information management cannot operate in a policy vacuum. Finally, we had Andrea and Melis from the core MIS team, and they explained it as the objective of the core MIS is to support cash transfers and economic inclusion programs. This is piloted in several countries, most notably in Zambia. And this and the merger core MIS and OpenMIS is focused to be a digital public good that can manage a variety of schemes, cash transfers, economic inclusion, programs to health insurance, employment injury insurance, and voucher schemes. It's going to be able to, if you use this solution, it's going to be able that you can even check historical data, and this will help to achieve a national view of interventions. So this is also a very promising tool, and that also can allow you to interoperate with external platforms, MIS registries, mobile network operators, data collection tools, and other apps. And with that, I finish the closing remarks, and I would like to move forward to present the way forward. So I would like to start with a little teaser about the next interoperability in action workshop, which will be focused on integrated beneficiary registry. I'm also very excited to share some news on the initiative. We are already started with the standards committee that started 1 month ago, and we are also working on different other work streams such as I don't know, payment system, identification system. You can read all of them in the right side of the slide. And next slide, please. And also, concretely, you can participate, sharing existing materials, reviewing outputs, joining workshops like this one. And I would like to, if you would like to submit your draft standards to the CDI for consensus building, you can do it so. So we invite you to join these efforts, and we hope to also, finally, we hope to see you in the next interoperability action session. Over to you, Veronica.
Thank you so much. On the final slide, you can see how you can stay in touch with us. In the meantime, we are on Twitter, Discourse, LinkedIn, we have our own website, etc. And we are already 2 minutes over time. So all I need to do now is to thank everyone, the wonderful speakers, the interested participants. This has been a really great session. Thanks, everyone, and see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.